one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Okay, and let's get a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of January 25th, 2021 is what that should say on the agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, we got a second. Okay, any discussion, updates, amendments? Nope. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
All right, great.
Aye.
Minutes passed. Thank you. Moving on to updates. It's nice to see the numbers are coming down in Connecticut. I think the state has been under 4% for over a week, almost 10 days, and the town is around the same as the state. So we've seen a big drop here in the last 3 to 4 weeks. We've also had a lot of success on vaccinations, and this data is a little bit old, but at least 58% of the population is probably in the 60 percentile now of Madison's 75 plus population has been vaccinated, and this is above the state average. So people are getting appointments and getting to their appointments. The town has been contributing to that effort. We've been holding a weekly clinic at the town gym on Thursdays. It's part of a 5-town consortium that we've been working with. Every town out of the 5 has held a vaccination clinic each day of the week. Unfortunately, we would ramp it up and have them every day of the week, or we double the number of people doing, but it's based on supply. So we're given an allocation, sometimes with not a lot of notice. And then we just start opening up the system in VAMs for people to book appointments. But those have run very smoothly and, been able to get a lot of seniors done. I'm sure many of you saw the governor now is adding the 65 plus category to people who are eligible. And starting Thursday, you can start booking those appointments in VAMs. My understanding is you can even try to book now through some of the pharmacy websites. And so CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and then some of the hospitals are also have their own portals. So there's going to be multiple outlets that you can book now. It's not all going to be through VAMs. And that's a large category of people to get vaccinated. So some people I know are already getting appointments for March and April, but we're hopeful that it's just going to keep expanding in terms of where you can get vaccinated. Given the fact that vaccination levels are going up and our positivity rate is really at a reduced level again, Town Hall will probably be returning to kind of 5-day-a-week operations. We've been doing more of a staggered shift to avoid different departments kind of getting wiped out basically by a COVID positive test. And so we're looking to move that in the next week or two back to kind of a normal operations. And then the Board of Selectmen is working on the budget. We have our first kind of workshop on Thursday. And I thought I'd just spend a second reminding the public what that process is. And we're starting our workshops. We're down in the gray bar right now. We've already gone through all these steps, including our CIP plan. We had joint workshops with the Board of Finance where the department heads would come in and talk about their budgets. Now the Board of Selectmen meets to talk about the budget. And then we will be kind of making a recommendation between either February 22nd or 25th, depending on how many meetings we need. Then it goes to the Board of Finance where there's a public hearing. And then they have their workshops. And then the Board of Finance makes a recommendation by March 24th, public hearing in April. And then the referendum would be held on May 18th. And we're expecting an in-person referendum on May 18th. I don't have answers on absentee ballots at this stage, but we're going to get a lot more information out to the public about how that might work. Our charter is very restrictive in terms of the timeline to hold a budget referendum. So it does make it somewhat problematic to allow people to vote absentee. And so these are some of the issues the Charter Review Commission is going to be looking at about going forward, making things more flexible because of different situations. But we're going to do our best to allow people to vote absentee, and we'll be kind of rolling out what that process might look at for the public. So that's kind of the budget process. And just wanted to remind the public about that. So we're fully into it. And then I'll open it up for selectmen reports and comments. Anybody have anything we want to share today?
Well, I can share about the Affordable Housing Committee. So Al, Dave Anderson and I have been interviewing applicants people who have submitted applications to serve on the committee. We've had a lot of great applicants, a lot of people even relatively new to town, which is nice to see. And we'll be wrapping those up probably within the next week. We'll have I guess decisions made on that.
Okay, I know that's an issue on the agenda, but the idea was we weren't sure if we were going to be ready, so we can take that to the next
definitely
meeting.
Not ready for today, but soon.
Okay, no, good. Any other updates? Nope. Okay.
I met with I had the library meeting last night. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Am I coming through? So the library met last night, and there was some discussions just about the building from the building committee and just some of the last things that are happening there. Said their HVAC system was running flawlessly for over a month, which was pretty encouraging. They were saying that 69% of the BTUs were coming from the ground source heat pump, which I know is something that they were pretty encouraged about, which will ultimately help reduce the overall operating costs. So they're on track, I guess, the way they explained it, they're on track actually to run the current new building at the same cost as the old building. So they were pretty encouraged based on some of the early data points that they were starting to get from the HVAC system. They did mention a FOIA related contractor issue that, Peggy, I know you're in the loop on. One of the contractors was not paid, and so there's it's a subcontractor, I believe. So it's like the third tier down, and sort of related to COVID and another company that ran out of funds. So nature of where we are with COVID, but I know that they're working hard to address the FOIA request and deal with that. And then they did talk a little bit about the library and just why it's not open to the public. And I know I spoke a little bit about that the last time. But one of the primary reasons they talked about last night too, just related, I believe it was a Shelton case where one of the employees at a library actually passed away because they opened and were exposed to COVID by the public. They don't want to put their staff at risk as well. So it's not just, the public at risk, but it's also putting their staff at risk. And they have very limited staff in general. So they don't have staff to, extra staff, so to speak. So that was discussed. And then they did mention also just relative to, sure.
So just so how long, so when was the library open? Do you know? I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I know
off the top of my head, I want to say it's like July 1st, something like that. I want to say.
No, I mean, it closed down for COVID, but then it reopened, right? The library?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I think that they started offering
limited hours though.
Yeah, limited hours in the fall. They had started limited hours in the fall. They were always providing books,
right?
But in terms of allowing public in without appointments, I think was in the fall.
And then they had to close down again because of the spike, right?
Because of the spike, and
that's right.
We'll talk about this more during our discussion.
I can wait.
Yeah. But yeah, because there's a lot of different kind of circumstances. I know that people from the library that are here that probably could answer better than me.
Okay. I was curious because I know
Sunny's actually on. We could promote Sunny if we want, but we'll talk about it later. But they did mention, I guess my last point in my update was just relative to PPP. I know there was some questions about whether or not they could reapply for PPP a second time, and they were they basically didn't qualify, is what I was told in the meeting. So just to address that question. So that is the library. And then I have Board of Ed and Madison Youth and Family Services tonight.
Okay. Any other updates? Nope. All right, great. All right, I guess we move on to citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments, Lauren?
Yep, one moment.
See a hand. There's one hand up.
Maureen Lopes has her hand raised. Maureen, you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
I did.
There you
Good morning, everyone. So first, the good news. My husband and I got right on the computer yesterday and have appointments for our first vaccine next Tuesday up at Wesleyan University. So we hadn't heard from Middlesex or Yale. But that reminded me that very early on, we had notified the Madison Senior Center to put us on a list of being notified about. Would it help Austin to let him know to take us off that list so he has a better idea of, I mean, this 65 plus group, we know it's a bigger group. So I don't know, Peggy, if you'd want to say something in your weekly update to people.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm going to be sending out probably to the vaccine survey group, which is the people wanting vaccine information.
Yes,
probably
that was what we did.
Yeah. And then we'll also have some information on the Friday update as well, because obviously it's changing every week. So, but thank you for sharing, and I'm glad you were able to get appointments. So
yes, we were right on top of it. And then just because I'm on, I am frustrated with the library. You know, Saturday I could walk into Guilford. I had 15 minutes to browse. I can gather enough mystery books in 15 minutes to take it, but they've been open a lot. And so, and this shipping books in, it's okay, but it's been awkward because you think the books are there and they're not, so you're going back several times. So whatever can be done, I'm really sorry that one particular library had a very bad situation, but other libraries seem to be able to be open at least part of the time. So I'm hoping that happens sooner than later. So thank you. Have a good meeting.
Just maybe a quick comment on that. A significant percentage of libraries, we're basically aligned with a significant percentage of libraries in the state of Connecticut that are doing the exact same thing. So I know, Sunny, I'm sort of teeing you up for later maybe, but if we could just talk about those percentages, remind people, I think I mentioned those on the last call as well. But it's, you know, I think we're right in line with what everybody else is doing.
okay. Any other citizens' comments, Lauren?
So Sunny actually has her hand raised. I'm gonna allow her in, and then we do have a few more.
Look at that. Look at that baton pass.
Well, Sunny, I don't want to steal your thunder because you're on number 7 on the agenda. So do you want to hold off any comments, or?
I can just address that quickly for Maureen in case she wants to hop off the meeting.
Okay.
Because as Scott mentioned, 70% of libraries in the state are not offering walk-in services right now. The 30% that are, I'm assuming that similar to Guilford, they have full-time custodial staff. So that's the main difference between us and Guilford. They have both full-time and part-time custodial staff to provide cleaning throughout the day. And you know, that does lead right into my special appropriation request for today. So we are hoping to get custodians and to reopen very soon. So that's it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Right, we have Alexander McKissick who would like to speak.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. This is Sandy McKissick. First of all, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for all you do for the town. It's good to see you all this morning. I joined in today to voice my approval for declaring February 21st, Eileen and Tom Banish Day. So I've lived in town since 2003. I live kind of close to Scott up in the northern end of town. And I think I've seen Tom and Eileen be part of every event in the town, every activity. Every time there's an an issue in town, they're front and center. So to me, I've always thought of them as Mr. and Mrs. Mayor of Madison. I'm going to miss them when they leave the town, but I think they've just made such a contribution to the town that I think it's well worth the recognition as they leave, that we should give them a great send off. So really would appreciate the Board of Selectmen, taking serious consideration with that declaration. So that's all I wanted to express today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Amy Stefanowski has her hand raised.
Thank you, Lauren. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hopefully
Yep.
you can't see me because I'm still in my PJs. I just want to say good morning to you all. It's Amy Stefanowski here. It's nice to see you. Glad you can't see me. I would like to also voice my enthusiastic support in your idea today to proclaim today the Tom and Eileen Banish Day on behalf of both the Madison RTC as well as an 18-year resident of Madison who personally likes to eat, shop, raise a family, grow my business, and enjoy everything that the town of Madison has to offer. Bob and I would like to personally thank Tom and Eileen for their many contributions to our town and also to the general spirit of our community. Mr. and Mrs. Banish, Mr. and Mrs. Madison, can be seen everywhere, every day, making sure Madison is always the best it can be. There is nowhere that is more evident than downtown in our vibrant downtown, which we all love and cherish. South Carolina's gain is Madison's devastating loss. I just want to thank you again, Tom and Eileen, for all you've done for the fabric of our community and our downtown. You will be very missed, and we hope to see all at the Banish Car Day Parade on Sunday, February 21st. Thanks for letting me speak.
Great. Thank you, Amy.
There is no one else with their hand raised.
Okay, well, it's a perfect lead in to our next topic. I guess, can I get a motion to discuss and take action to approve a proclamation honoring Tom Banish and Eileen Banish?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Great, and it looks like we have them, I'm assuming they're together on here.
We are.
Great, well, thank you. No, oh, there we go, okay. Well, first of all, I guess if we'd like to go ahead and read the proclamations. I think, Bruce, you were gonna read, we have two different ones, because you obviously have given tremendous service to the town in different ways, but also complementary ways, and then together as a team. So first of all, Bruce, if you'd like to read the one for Tom.
Sure. Whereas Tom Banish has been a presence in the town of Madison for more than 25 years, serving in the town government and through numerous local and civic organizations, most notably as first selectman of the town of Madison from 2015 to 2019. And whereas Tom Banish has served on numerous state committees and boards representing the people of Madison, including as a member of the Connecticut Republican State Central Committee, the Board of Directors of the Council of Small Towns, the Executive Board of the Council of Small Towns, the Board of Directors of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the Executive Board of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the Board of Directors of the Workforce Alliance, the Executive Board of the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, the Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, and is chairman of the South Central Regional Council of Government and vice chairman of the Board of Directors of the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency. Whereas Tom Banish has supported town government through his service on 2 charter review committees, the Beach and Rec Commission, all as chairman, where he helped move forward initiatives to benefit all residents of Madison. And whereas Tom Banish has been generous with his time and talents, serving local and civic organizations such as the Madison Little League as president, Madison Rotary as president, the Board of Directors of Community Investment Company, the Board of Trustees of the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, the Board of Trustees for Mercy by the Sea, the Board of Directors, New Haven Middlesex Realtors Association, the Legislative Committee, New Haven Middlesex Realtors Association, and the Board of Directors, Connecticut. And whereas Tom Banish has shown his love and loyalty to Madison in his exhaustive list of organizations, he will particularly be missed as the voice of the Tigers, where his calm voice entertained crowds at Friday night football games. Now, therefore, we, the members of this board, hereby unanimously name February 21, 2021, Tom and Eileen Banish Day in the town of Madison, done this 9th day of February 2021 in the town of Madison, Connecticut. I'm out of breath from all of that, Tom.
I know, it's actually, I forgot.
And that's not all of it. That's the crazy thing is that's just sort of the top layer of what Tom has done. And you know, on a personal note, when it came time and I reached the point in life where I was ready to start volunteering in the town, it was Tom who eased me in on an appointed committee, helped me get my feet and understand, you know, how the town worked, why the volunteerism was so important, set the example, was always available even for things that weren't related to what he was doing at the time, with his guidance and advice. And what's scary is I am probably one of dozens of people who have the same story, where Tom introduced citizens into town volunteerism and helped sustain this community through that effort. So this long list really needs to be capped with the recruiting and sustaining that he's done to volunteerism in the town of Madison. And I will always be grateful for that gift, because this town service is a gift, as you all know, and a passion. And he will be missed. We wish him and Eileen best of luck as they move on to greener pastures.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Glad that I had the official thing while you were reading this. Whoops, sorry, I'm messing this up here. Apologize, but just to highlight the day that's being declared for February 21st, 2021, and there'll be a car parade starting at 11:30 at the Surf Club. So the whole community can participate in this way to celebrate and thank the Banishes. So we also have another proclamation for Eileen. So I don't know, I think Scott was going to read that.
Yep. And I want it noted here that it's Eileen and Tom Banish Day, not Tom and Eileen Banish Day. So as in the proclamation. So here we go. Whereas Eileen Banish has had a tremendous impact on the town of Madison, which includes decades of service in town government and in multiple civic organizations. And whereas Eileen Banish has served on the town of Madison's Historic District Commission since its inception, and has in this capacity helped to preserve and maintain the historic integrity and charm that is attributed to downtown Madison. And whereas Eileen Banish has supported other town government initiatives for service on the Connecticut Tourism Council and as a member of the Downtown Revitalization Committee, where she championed initiatives to attract visitors and new residents to Madison. And whereas Eileen Banish has most notably served as the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, where she has worked tirelessly to oversee events and initiatives that have brought attention to Madison businesses, business district, and supported business owners in their endeavors to provide quality goods and services to residents and visitors to the town. And whereas Eileen Banish has been generous with her time and talents, serving local and civic organizations such as Madison Newcomers Club, the Madison Rotary Club, the Scranton Library Ball, where she was the chairman, the ABC Board of Directors, and the St. Margaret's Church Council. And whereas Eileen Banish has been recognized previously as the Vista Person of the Year and has been awarded the Paul Harris Award for her selfless devotion to the people of Madison. Now, therefore, we, the members of the board, hereby unanimously name February 21st, 2021, Tom and Eileen Banish Day, or Eileen and Tom Banish Day, in the town of Madison, done this 9th day of February 2021 in the town of Madison, Connecticut. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you very much, Scott, and everybody on the board. We're truly humbled by this.
Yeah, and I just want to echo my thanks for an extraordinary amount of dedication and service to the community. And Tom, as a fellow first selectman, knowing how challenging this job is, having sat here now for over a year, appreciative of all the service and the progress that you've made to the town and furthering just serving the public. I don't know if any other board members want to make some comments.
I'd like to just say thank you and acknowledge Tom and Eileen as well. When I moved to Madison, I don't know, 20 years ago, I was moving into a town where Ryan had, had his roots down, and he had done a lot of work with Tom and Eileen, and they really welcomed me to the town. And I think they've set a great example on what it means to give back and really create a community.
Tom and Eileen's dedication and public service to this town is such a wonderful example of what makes this town so special. And emulating their example, there's so many volunteers who make this town a very special place. We will miss them.
All right, great. Well, I guess then with that being said, I guess all in favor of declaring February 21st, 2021, Tom and Eileen Banish Day, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we wish you all the best. And when I look out the window and see the snow falling, I'm wondering why I'm sitting in Connecticut right now. So, so enjoy the good weather for sure.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation, or excuse me, discussion take action to approve the reclassification of Flo Farrelly into the position of record specialist. Any motion?
moved.
Second?
So moved. Second.
Okay. We've got Deb on, talk about this briefly. Okay.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
This is a reclassification of a current employee into a vacant position that was vacated as part of the early retirement incentive. So it is budgeted, it's funded within the department, and we're just shifting a part-time employee into a full-time employee.
Okay. Any more questions? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Okay. Number 8, discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request from the E.C. Scranton Memorial Library in the amount of $33,415 in anticipation of additional budget needs in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2020-2021. I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay. And Al seconding? Looks like.
Second.
Okay, great. All right. So I will let Sunny talk briefly because we kind of started the conversation about the purpose of this and where we are with the library. So I will turn it over to Sunny.
Sure. So just to expand on what we were talking about earlier, the library has been providing remote services and contactless pickup since July 13th. We did open for walk-in services mid-September, and we stayed open until the first week of January, at which point we had advice from Trent Joseph that it would be appropriate to go to appointment only. And I'm very grateful for that advice. Frankly, January was a very difficult month for libraries in our state. As I said, 70% were closed for walk-in services like us. The ones that remained open saw numerous exposures, positive COVID tests for their staff. And then Shelton is the worst example that had loss of life as well. They had about 7 staff members test positive, and it was part of and contributed to a larger outbreak throughout the town. So I feel like we stayed open as long as we could. We stayed open for walk-ins longer than several other surrounding towns, Clinton, Westbrook, Brantford, North Brantford, but we closed just in the nick of time to make sure that we were not part of the problem with the spike that we saw in January. We're very excited to see those infection rates going down now. So we are keeping a close watch on that rate. We're almost back down to the rate that we had when we reopened in the fall. So we are starting the discussion about how we can reopen. It is likely to be on a very limited basis to start, but that brings me up to date with the special request, request for special appropriation. 13,000 of the funds that we're requesting would go to hire and pay 2 part-time custodians to start in April as soon as possible. And that would give us the ability to have the building cleaned throughout the day. So right now, the only thing we have in our budget is cleaning crew that comes through once a day in order to comply with the governor's guidelines for being reopened and having both bathrooms and seating available. Those areas need to be cleaned often, frequently throughout the day. So we would be thrilled to offer that. We want to reopen as soon as possible, and we really want to have more seating. When we were open for walk-in services, more hours and more seating were the biggest request that we got, and we really want to provide that. So getting those custodians started is really vital. The additional 20,000 or so would go to defray some one-time reopening costs that we have incurred. We were able to mitigate some others with expense reductions in other categories. These 2 things, the staffing and the one-time reopening expenses, were part of a 150,000 request that I brought up just about a year ago when we thought we would be opening normally in July. And because they weren't spent during that fiscal year, the Board of Finance did ask us to return those funds, which we have done or are in the process of doing. And then they suggested that we come back with a request for the smaller appropriation for what we actually did need. So we have saved over $100,000 in the meantime and just spent as little as possible. So I think that's it.
Great. No, I thank you.
Questions?
I have a few, Sunny. The reopening expenses, I would have thought those would have been in the bonding money, that they would have been one of the expenses covered through the bond.
As part of the construction project. The construction, right. I would have too, but the construction project, because there's state money involved, it is very, very specific what you can use money for and what you can't. Anything that was included in the scope of the project sort of had to already be there. So when we moved into the building and we needed things like trash cans to go at staff members' desks and new book carts, even just, bookends, when you need to buy several hundred of them at once, unfortunately, the cost does add up. And unfortunately, those were not within the scope of the project as it had been, in the paperwork that was approved.
And Peggy, do we know, did the Board of Finance indicate that they would be willing to put this money back into the budget for these types of expenses?
We had a conversation several weeks ago about the need to get whatever they needed to reopen. So I don't know specifically about this actually reduced request that they're putting forward now. But my understanding is there's a view that we need to be reopening the library, and these were expenses that were needed. I think there's a strong demand in the community right now to have the library open, and it's been frustrating for people not understanding the dynamics. Obviously, I think the cleaning in particular is one that is just, we just have to give you the staff, and this is going to be something that was part of the original budget you proposed a year ago. And it's critical during these COVID times for this. You know, I think that I feel that we just need to provide you whatever you need so you can offer additional hours. I know we talked a lot about timing of this when we met with Jean, the chair of the Board of Finance. And part of it was like when we were going to be open, when would the funds be needed? I think now with the infection rates much lower than, I think our conversation, they were still like double where they are now. And then secondly, the hopes that with vaccination rates increasing rapidly now, that, you know, the library staff will be vaccinated probably in March, and we'll just be able to offer so much more to the community at the library. So there's lead time that's required, you know, and Sunny needs to now start planning some of this stuff so she can be open in March. I think April 1 was the target ultimately, right? So this is just allowing her to start planning to spending those funds.
Sunny, I think most businesses, you know, with the public in there, are faced with this sort of surface disinfection and are just retasking existing staff to do this on an occasional basis. Is that what you were doing when you were open from September through December?
Yes, and that's why and that is part of why our hours were very limited, because the staff, we have a very small staff. So the staff who were at the public service desks to help patrons, we would close for a couple hours. We would have them go through, disinfect services, spray down any computers or chairs that were used, do those sorts of things, take their lunch breaks, and then come back to the desk in order to open again. So having custodians to provide those services while they stayed at the desk would allow us to elongate our hours that we could have public in.
Bruce, and I don't know if you've been to the library, but you can't sit anywhere right now. There's like tape on everything. I mean, it's literally, you walk in, you stand. A lot of things are kind of roped off or taped off. You know, you can't even sit in a chair to read a book for a while right now. So having on-call cleaning available throughout the day, I think, you know, so if you see a group sitting there, you can send somebody over right away and clean and disinfect right after. They just don't have anybody to do that right now. So they can't allow people to sit and use the facility.
Right. So I think I've got a couple of high-level thoughts that I'm trying to grapple with. The first is this procedural problem of altering the operating budget outside of the normal budget process. You know, respectfully, Peggy, I don't think it is our job to give organizations whatever they ask for. I think it's our job to make sure that we're critically thinking about what the ask is, and then representing the best interests of not only the organization, but the taxpayers at the same time. And I think that in an unusual year, that the precedent that we've begun to set is that organizations or town departments are coming to us mid-cycle and asking for increases to their operating budget outside of the normal process. And in another year, we would say to that department, encumber your funds, slow down your spending, look at your discretionary spending so that you can make it through the end of the year, and then come back to us with next year's budget. The Board of Ed does this all the time. And as a matter of fact, they're probably working on that hard right now. I'm sure that there are town departments that are looking at their budget and the balance of the year and modulating their spending. And I'm wondering if, since we're talking about the last 2 months of the fiscal year, or maybe 3 months, you know, maybe we shouldn't be asking the library to do the same thing, to look at their operating budget year to date, where they've been fully funded from the town.
Well, they weren't fully funded. They weren't fully funded. You're forgetting that after when COVID hit, How much did the Board of Finance reduce your budget, Sunny? The request that you put in last
About
year.
175,000.
So their budget request was cut by 175,000 in March. And so the point here is to at least get them back some basic services so they can open their doors more. That's all. This isn't adding extra things onto a budget that they had submitted last year. Their budget was cut by $175,000 last year.
So no, in fact, we did not approve everything they asked for. We did not cut their budget. We actually
the Board of Selectmen though approved a budget for them in March, and then the Board of Finance reduced what we had approved by $175,000.
And that becomes the town budget. That
becomes Bruce. Just to remind you, you voted for that too.
Yeah, the full budget last year.
I appreciate that, but remember, we're talking about process here. There was a budget approved, like it or not, like the dollar amount or not. There was a budget approved, and now we're talking about altering that approved budget. Last year there was no public vote, but for the sake of argument, I would say that we had a de facto public vote because the governor empowered the Board of Finance with this decision on behalf of the voters.
I just think that you're comparing crisis mode in March, where reductions were taken because we had so much uncertainty. All they're trying to do is add some custodians and get some additional supplies they need to open their doors so more people can use the library. This was all part of the budget request they made last year. So all they're doing is trying to get back some of that. I mean, I guess I just don't see it as I understand process and I hear what you're saying, but remember, the process was not followed normally last year. There was no normal process for the budget last year because number one, the Board of Finance made a bunch of
I also think
well, that's within their right. I mean, the Board
No,
of
I
Finance.
understand that, but then they voted on the final budget.
Right. But that is part of the process.
But the process was changed because of COVID, right? So go ahead, Scott, sorry.
Well, no, the decision was changed because of COVID, not the process.
No, the budgeting process normally goes to referendum. It did not go to referendum last year. I'm saying we're in a unique circumstance this year because of COVID. Even the budget itself was unique because of COVID, the process. So I'm just pointing that out, that I think it's hard to argue when we were operating under executive orders and the town didn't even get the opportunity to vote on the budget. That somehow we're not following process when we have been following process for 12 months. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Let me just chime in, and I think my internet connection is slow, so I apologize. I'm having a hard time getting in, but I think, at least in my experience over the last year, and frankly, the last 6 years as the library liaison, I have seen no group in the town be more fiscally responsible to address any and all of the concerns that the public has addressed, or that the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, and the library team comes back every single time with some fiscally responsible decision making to address the economic needs of the town, the situation that we're in currently with COVID. They've done everything we've asked them to do. And I think, recognizing last year they were cut by $175,000, the team went back to the drawing board and said, what do we really need to go open? And I think that's exactly what they're coming back and asking for today. So, I think, the public is demanding a level of service here. And I think the public expects the library to be open, and the library is trying to do the best they possibly can in a terrible time right now. So I personally think we need to stand up and support the library in their request here.
My concern is the bigger issue. This is now the third or fourth time this year, this fiscal year, that a group, a town department or an outside group, has come back to us and said, my operating budget isn't big enough. I need you to increase it. And I have real concern that the message we're sending to town departments is, if you need more money, if we didn't give you enough money through the referendum, come back to us during the year and we'll give you more money. I have a real problem with that.
Well, you know what? It's really hard to predict, given the year that we've been in. what needs are. Okay, remember, the budget was approved and finalized in April. COVID's been going on. We've been in a state of emergency at the state level since March. So I think to sit there and criticize department heads and entities about their inability to predict needs is tough. I mean, I think it's just really unfair to the department heads, and it's unfair to the library.
I also think, Peggy, to add to that too, I also don't think to me, the level of scrutiny we put on the library is, to me, bar none compared to any of the other departments. I think the library goes back to the drawing board more times than we've asked them to, for each and every one of these little requests. And so I think they've done everything in their power to be responsible here.
Well, and remember that we spent a lot of time going through their proposed operating budget during the budget workshops last year. And we went through and validated that we voted to move this forward, including you unanimously, the budget that they had approved last year. So they're just trying to work back to what they had asked for last year. And they're still going to be $100,000 short of that.
Can I ask a question?
I'm slightly frustrated.
Let Aaron
though,
talk,
that we're
because she's
even in
really
this
been trying to get in here, Scott. Let Aaron talk, sorry.
Thank you. So Sunny,
Sorry, Aaron.
That's okay. I know you're passionate about this topic.
No, it's my internet connection. I think it doesn't.
Oh,
I think it's not kicking in.
I thought I was on mute. I was like, can nobody hear me?
Sorry, no. Just...
So Sunny, I know this has been discussed in the past, so I apologize for asking again. But so I'm looking at the spreadsheet that was sent out with our materials, and so the PPP loan it looks like it's in the December column. And so those were funds that weren't anticipated as part of the budget process, right? So yes. The question, which I know you've explained before, is where, so what happened with those funds? And I guess the question is, and maybe for some people in the public, is that if the library was not open for full hours, and then we got this influx of additional money from the PPP, why are we in a position where, or why is the library in a position where they would require this additional appropriation?
Sure. The 117, the 117 essentially helped us to offset the 175 that was cut by the town. It went to pay salary. That was the approved use of that. And basically it allowed us to avoid layoffs. Without the PPP funds, we would have had massive layoffs. And currently, anyone who works at town campus knows this, offering remote services is actually often more labor intensive than in-person services. So being able to, without the current level of staffing that we have, we would not have been able to provide the takeout services. We're checking thousands of books out to people, in addition to all the virtual programming and the phone assistance and all that. So those funds were required to keep our level of staffing and provide the remote services.
Okay. So those layoffs would have had to happen because you didn't get the
budget request
from the town. So that was sort of in the plan that was then avoided.
The PPP funds, saved us from having to do that.
And I know Scott mentioned before that the library is not eligible for the second round of PPP.
That's correct.
Why is that? Just out of curiosity.
For the second round, yeah, that's fine. For the second round, there's an additional eligibility requirement that you show a 25% decrease in revenue from this year to last year. And we have had both internal discussions, and we've also discussed it with our rep from Guilford Savings Bank, and we do not meet that eligibility criteria.
Great. Sunny, I just looked at clarifying something because I'm not sure I heard it correctly. The staff that you kept on with the PPP, is the staff that was covered by that $175,000 that the town, in excess of what the town approved?
No,
So,
less than what the town approved. We would,
okay,
we had
yeah,
also,
let me, I said that badly. Let me rephrase that.
okay.
The request from the library was 175,000 more than what the town approved, right? So that's where the word cut is being thrown around. The actual budget year over year wasn't cut. The request was reduced and wasn't filled 100%, and that was $175,000 or so. The staffing that the PPP allowed you to keep, is that the staffing that was included in that $175,000 gap?
Less the custodians and a couple other part-time positions. So we did not hire, we put on pause several part-time positions that we were also planning to hire for, including the custodians and a couple other part-timers to staff desks. So we did not hire everyone that we had planned to hire in our proposal.
Okay, so your staffing tallied out with your funding. You modulated your staffing model to be in line with your funding.
Partially. Yes.
Partially. Meaning that you had more staff than you had funding for?
Meaning, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm completely getting your question. I'm sorry.
I mean, I
Okay,
think that
so let me take another stab at it. You weren't, the town didn't give you all of the funding that you asked for. That would, of course, require you to rethink your plan, and most likely rethink it around staffing to right size your staffing to the funding that you were receiving. And I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Did you do that, or did you find yourself with more staff than the funding was allowing for?
Okay. We had been in the process of hiring when COVID hit. We hired for several vacant positions, positions that already existed but had been vacant for a while. So we hired those positions, and then we put on pause several part-time positions. And we got the PPP loans to continue to fund all of the positions we had. And now this request includes 2 custodians. There's an additional 2 part-timers that are in the request for July.
I just look at this though. We went through a very detailed operating model last year. The library proposed about what their operating model needed to be to have the library open and to operate at the normal hours that they had offered prior to the new building being built. Okay, and I see this as each step is getting us closer back to that operating model, which our board had approved and recommended to move forward in the budgeting process. So they need full-time custodians. That was part of last year's budget. They spent all year not doing that. Instead, they outsourced it, and they've done other tweaks to their staffing. They've had some other money come in, but keep in mind, PPE loans are also for buying more wipes than they ever thought they'd need to buy, buying masks, putting shields up in front of the desks. There's other expenses associated with COVID. And so I think now we're just trying to take another step so that rather than waiting till July 1, when they get the funds for next year's budget, they can actually open their doors more in March.
One thing I did want to mention is, this might be an important piece of the puzzle for Bruce, is that we gave an update on our budget to the Board of Finance in October. And at that meeting, the Board of Finance suggested that we return the 150 that had been approved for this exact purpose in the last fiscal year. And they asked us to come forward and make a request for a special appropriation for the smaller portion of that we would still need in this fiscal year. So we are making this request at the advice of the Board of Finance.
I mean, that was sort of the point that I wanted to chime in with earlier. Sorry, Al. I feel like the library, not to beat a dead horse here, but I feel like the library is doing exactly what they were asked to go do. Some of this was, at the council and recommendation of the Board of Finance to come back to us with a special appropriation request. So I guess I'm somewhat surprised on the pushback here and the concerns on this process, because it isn't a surprise.
And I would say if you have issues with their operating model, Bruce, then that's part of our budget workshop, right? Because that's what we're going to be talking about for July 1st.
So let's suppose that this passes this morning. We've now increased the operating budget for next year. So I would say to Sunny, what would your plan be if the boards and the voters did not approve the 2 extra positions next year, did not approve the funding of it? Would you be prepared to let those individuals go on July 1st? Because that is, I don't want to put a probability around it, but that is a possibility.
That's a possibility any year in any budget season. There's always a chance. Our funding is never guaranteed. And that's a possibility that I face every single year. So it's really no different for me.
I would like to raise our gaze, if I could. Madison is stirring. Its citizenry is anticipating a renaissance of community life. As we look forward to Madison reawakening from winter and from this pandemic, it's time to reawaken the library. The library is so much a part of the fabric of our community. And I fear we're getting lost in some very small details here, when really the community has indicated already at the polls and by their support of the library, by using library services, this community wants its library open. And I think we as the selectmen need to find a way to do that, beginning right now with this vote. I'm going to be voting in favor of this motion, and asking our colleagues over at the Board of Finance to help us open the library.
So respectfully, Al, our job is to make the sausage, and this is down in the weeds. And I appreciate that a lot of people will watch this, or maybe 6 people will watch this and say, what the heck is going on here? But this is what we do. This is our job, to think about the bigger issues. Yes, I get that it's only $13,000 for the last couple of months of the year. I'm thinking about the higher level thought of altering the operating budget mid-cycle. But I would also like to throw in a bit of a left-hand curve and suggest that maybe we're not really talking about the right line in their budget from a special appropriation perspective. And I apologize, Sunny, the document we were provided is really only current through October of last year. So all of my comments now are based off of information that's 4 months old. But it looks to me like the library has been handed a bit of a problem in its pension. Your normal year-to-year experience is about $145,000 in pension contributions. And this year, your expense is going to be closer to $177,000. So you've got a hole in your budget, which I'd have to take my shoes off to count that high, but well, let's call it $30-some thousand. And then compounding that, you're expecting that your ongoing pension obligation is going to be about 220-ish in round numbers. And I think that from an operating perspective, that's the biggest stress on your budget right now. And I think that what we should be considering as a board is a plan to cover the hole on the pension for this year and accommodating that new funding level for the pension next year. Now, coincidentally, we happen to be talking about the same amount of money. And I think that is purely coincidence. But I would be willing to support a special appropriation to make the library whole on their pension increase, their unexpected pension increase. That the difference between that historical experience of 145-ish and the current year reality of 177. And then as we move into the budget discussions, I think we need to come up with the ongoing funding to get them to the 220. So I admit it's a bit of a tangent.
I'm a little confused about where you
well, I think in a word, I cannot see a path to approving an increase to the operating budget mid-cycle, especially so close to the end of the year.
But we don't approve line items to them. We approve amount of money that goes to the board, and then they use it. They're disclosing to us how they're going to use it and why they need it. But we don't say like 33,415 because we don't have line item control over their budget. Their board of trustees has line item control over their budget. So, you know, like I hear what you're saying. You're kind of rationalizing that they're going to need help because they've had issues with pension too. That's hurt their budget. But the bottom line is they need $33,415 in order to have enough money to hire custodial staff and buy book carts, right?
Right. Well, so said another way, the making the pension whole is a one-time expense for this year, and signaling our agreement that one-time expenses are legitimate special appropriation requests. By discussing this in the context of adding staff, I think we're sending a very clear signal out there that if you have staff needs after the budget is voted on and that budget was not what you requested, come back to us later. I would be horrified if the Board of if the Board of Education did this to us, that they self-censored some staffing needs and then came back to us in the middle of the year and said, well, we need to add staff, so you need to give us more money. I think
I don't think, Bruce, respectfully, I don't think that was the intent originally. I think the intent was to do it in the normal course of the budget, but the Board of Finance counseled them and us to do it this way. So I don't feel like this is a big surprise.
Well, it sounds like the motion though, Bruce, because the motion says in anticipation of additional budget needs. It does not say additional operating expenses to hire X, Y, and Z. The motion just says in anticipation of additional budget needs in the fourth quarter fiscal year 2020, 2021, you're comfortable with that language in terms of voting in favor of that. You just don't want it tied to specific operational staffing requests.
Well, funny you should read the motion again, because that's the another problem I have is that we're appropriating money in expectation of an expense, not in the actual realization of an expense.
Well, they have to hire the people, so they need the money to they can't, it takes time to hire people. So I think that's why it's like, it's going to take her a month or, to go out and advertise and then hire the people. So if she came after she hired them, then she'd be in real trouble, right? So she's trying to get approval ahead of time. So I guess, are you not comfortable with the language in the motion? Is there other amendments you'd make to the language so that at least it would then, you'd be comfortable?
So just so that I'm clear, Bruce, so the proposal you're making would get Sunny to the same place, but we would not be specifically approving funds for the request that's before us, which is the custodial staff and the reopening expenses.
Right. I think said plainly, I can't find a way to support this special appropriation request. However, if we were to have a conversation about the hole in the budget that their pension contributions has created, I absolutely would be willing to do that.
And then Sunny, would that get you to where you need to be?
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's, yeah, it's pretty similar.
I'm sorry, the last comment you made, Bruce, could you repeat that? That,
Sure.
so are you proposing
I-
changes to the language in the motion? Is that?
I would propose, if, well, they're actually, I think they're kind of separate, right? What I am proposing is that I see a big hole in their budget. And again, I'm talking about, a financial report that's 4 months old. So my information may be out of date, but it looks to me like they've got a $30-some thousand hole in their budget due to an unexpected increase in their pension obligation. That's a real unexpected one-time expense to the budget this year. That is a suitable candidate for a special appropriation.
So if we said at the end, said in the amount of 33,415 due to unexpected budgetary issues related to the pension for the fourth quarter of fiscal 2021, or not even put the time period in there, you'd be comfortable with that language?
Well, again, given that my number is 4 months old, I think what I'm saying is there. So the pension obligation is 177,702 this year, according to the numbers that I've got. The historical experience is $145,000. So the difference between those numbers is whatever that math is. I can't count that high. Would be the appropriate amount.
So what's the number? I don't.
And isn't that the number that these guys have put forward? I guess I'm struggling with. I feel like we're going through a little bit of an exercise here. Isn't that exactly the analysis that the library team has put forward here in terms of the request they need? I feel like we're just kind of going around in circles.
That would be about 32,000.
Okay. I mean, I'm comfortable amending this to $32,000 in due to budget, shortfalls for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
But then what? It feels like we're sort of splitting hairs here, Peggy. I mean, we're 32 between 32 and 33.4.
I'm trying to get people to be all of us supportive of this. And if this is going to allow Bruce to feel that he's supportive of it, then I think that's a good thing, because this does have to go through another board.
What is not going to be funded then with the four? Oh, so what is
no, but we just give them $32,000. So they would be getting $1,415 less.
It's just earmarked differently, right?
Yep. That's fine.
How it is. So
that's not a problem.
It meets the objectives of everybody.
Right.
So he's going to be able
and technically we can't earmark. We're just in our motions, we're earmarking it, but it's their controlling of the funds. So.
Right. But we're not tying our hands as far as the budget for next year and what we're committing to.
Right.
And then I think that's an important call out, Erin. I think that's an important call out that we are not signaling or approving or anything, extra staffing. And I think that the library needs to take that into consideration as they move forward with their decisions, that in the fourth quarter of the year, they're adding, they may be, that'll be up to them. But if they add staff in the last quarter of the year, they do it without any promise that the town is going to fund that in the next year. That's an important call out for the library to understand.
So
I think we never expect a guarantee that funding will stay the same from year to year. In fact, we're receiving $13,000 less this year than we did back in 2018, the last time we were in our building. So there is no expectation on the part of the library that funding stays the same from year to year, and there never has been.
So I'm just thinking, just to move on, because we've spent a long time on this, and unfortunately, Sunny has had to sit through many of these kinds of grueling discussions. But I understand, the perspective that Bruce is coming from, and possibly other board members. And so, if we were to amend the motion to say to approve a special appropriation request from the EC Scranton Memorial Library in the amount of $32,000 due to shortfalls, unexpected shortfalls in the fiscal year 2021 budget. Does that sound adequate?
Actually, I'll just put a small nuance on it. That amount is to cover the unexpected increase in pension obligation that the library has in the current fiscal year.
Why don't we say relating to unexpected? We can't tell them specifically how to spend the money.
How to spend it.
Yeah, so relating, but we can say that our intention is this. We can't.
Okay, related
tie
to
it-
the
yeah,
unexpected.
relating to unexpected pension expenses.
I mean, at
Okay.
the end of the day, regardless if it's in the motion or not, Sunny has explained what it's going to be used
Right,
for.
exactly.
So I guess I'm not sure
so-
the language, it's on record at this point as to,
Right. No, but I think but to Bruce's point, this is going through another board. So I think that, how we approve it is important. And, and I think, and from Sunny's perspective, she just needs this money because she's short or roughly $33,000, right? Where that came from, you can talk about and go through different things, but, so is that, I just made that motion. I have to, yes, or amendment to the motion. I just made the amendment to the motion. Can I
So-
get a,
Peggy, before you do that, I just want to let you guys know, June Fitzgerald just had her hand raised. Do you want to invite her in? Just to kind of gauge the other board.
why, I mean, it is, if she'd like to say something, of course, but obviously this is going to come before her board, but, okay.
I'll make it brief. It does matter, the wording. We don't have line item control, but in terms of good practice, the money that is being given, if it is approved, is not for staffing, because we cannot send a signal that says, we're going to give you this money and you're going to use it for staffing, and then ask for money on top of it for next year, because that does change the base of they will be short again next year the same amount of money. So it does matter that it is on record that this money is not intended to hire people. It's to offset the gap in their budget due to the pension. We're not telling them to spend it for that, but on the record, it needs to be. So we are not in the same place next year in which we are being asked for money because they don't have enough from last year's budget. So it does matter. I also want to be careful, Sunny, the way the representation of the Board of Finance told you to come back for money. We said that and we say this to every single entity, if you need more money, you can certainly come back and have a discussion with us, but I don't want that to be misrepresented that we told you to come back for this money, because that was not the intent of the Board of Finance. It's the same with everybody. You also made a comment about the $13,000 in the hole. We have had this discussion. Stacy has sent you the numbers. You know that's not true. The $13,000 was the reduction, and I'll send everybody the correspondence. The $13,000 was the reduction in the ask, not of your base budget. Before you went off, correct. So that is not that you are in the hole. You were never given that money.
We are receiving, correct. That's what I said. We are receiving $13,000 less than we were because we don't expect
$13,000 less than you requested. That's the difference. And I can send
we are
you.
receiving $13,000 less this year than we received from the town in fiscal year 2017, 2018.
2017, you requested $13,000 less. You were given the money off the $13,000 less. So that was your choice to ask for that money. So I just want to be clear that there's facts out there. Thank you.
Yes, that's exactly the point I was trying to make. The funding went down. We don't expect to get more every year. That's the point I was trying to make. We do not expect to get more every year. Sometimes our request goes down, the funding goes down.
Okay, so and I think obviously the Board of Finance will have the opportunity to talk about this, but I understand Jean just wanted to clarify some things, statements. So, so I think that, it sounds like we're at a point, the amended motion that I made, so for the funding, everybody's comfortable with the new motion? I
Yeah,
didn't get a
Lauren, can you
second of
just,
it, right? Amended motion?
we talked about a lot of things. Can you just read back what you understand it to be?
Lauren, did you get it down better than I did? I was kind of spewing. So read it back.
Yeah, so I have to approve a special appropriation request in the amount of $32,000 due to unexpected budget shortfalls relating to increased pension expenses in the current fiscal year 2020-2021.
Okay. Say a second for that.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in
We're gonna-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. All right, thank you. Thank you, Sunny, for your patience. Thank you, Jean, for weighing in. And hopefully we have a motion that is everybody's comfortable with, and the library can work on this budget shortfall issue with the new funds. Okay? All right, great. All right, thank you. Number 9. Discuss follow-up options and selected topics relating to the Government Studies Committee, the Ethics Commission, Health Council, Board and Commission appointment process. So the purpose of this was more, just going through things we talked about in the past and trying to move forward. Now we've gotten a number of things accomplished. We did the Island Committee, we've set up the Affordable Housing Committee, and we did the Government Studies already. Charter review is launched. And so I was trying to close the loop and set a kind of timeline or prioritization of other things that we talked about, particularly Ethics Commission. And, I don't think today is a deep dive on an Ethics Commission or what we need to do. But when I went on the town website and looked at our Board of Selectmen policies, we actually refer to an Ethics Commission in our policies. And the board had actually approved a commission back in 2007 or 2006.
2011, yeah.
But then it was never actually seated. And so we're also going through a charter review process. And there's this whole discussion about what do we put in the charter and what do we not have in charter in terms of standing commissions for the community going forward. So I just wanted to open up for discussion. I think that it's worth moving forward on an ethics commission, looking at what our existing charge is for the commission that was approved. Do we need to amend that? We also need to amend our Board of Finance, our Board of Selectmen policies. I think there's just they haven't been updated in a long time. We're actually reviewing right now our purchasing policy, and we were able to get some resources from the regional SCROG to help us do that. We have a purchasing expert looking at our purchasing policies, and those are part of the Board of Selectmen policies. So I'm going to be proposing some changes to policies, and I think it's just good to tie that in, the Ethics Commission, updating our Board of Selectmen policies, and then perhaps talking with the Charter Review Commission of how we address an Ethics Commission as well. So that was my thinking. When I look at the three of these, I think the Health Council was a great concept that we talked about. I think from a prioritization point, I think that's going to be a longer term. We're going to probably do a lot of after action once COVID is over about how we could have managed the process better, what other resources could we have brought in. And that's when I would envision we could maybe talk about, some sort of health council if we feel it's appropriate. And then I think the board and commission appointment process is one we've struggled with. And I think that really ultimately resides in the charter review, rather than trying to have some independent group study this and make recommendations. So those are kind of my thoughts on those three things. And I was thinking we focus on ethics, and then we take board and commission and push it over to charter review, and then health council is kind of like a 6-month thing post-COVID. So that's what was my thinking. I don't know, any other board members have thoughts on that?
Peggy, one other idea you have advanced in the past but didn't make this particular list was the idea of a permanent facilities committee.
Yeah, that's one I think that naturally will come when we talk about the facility study. I was kind of focused on what government studies, committee had been addressed to deal with, and they had talked about in their report. But I would agree that the facilities committee, I was going to put that on the agenda when we have our special meeting to go through the facilities report and talk about that, because that's kind of like a follow-on to that.
Right. So I think that makes a lot of sense, Peggy, what you just described. Just question about the ethics commission. How do you, or maybe we don't know this yet, but how do you envision us or someone analyzing, whether or not we need one, what it would look like, what's the jurisdiction, like all of that? Like how do we, because I think that's a really interesting commission and it has been brought up. So I'm just curious about how you envision us moving forward on that.
We had actually started, just even in this office, Lauren and I doing some research. And so I have probably 6 towns ordinances about ethics as examples. And there's actually a lot of resources at CCM. So this was going to be kind of like a research project and then coming forward with different options for it. Some have more teeth to them, so to speak. Some are just issue opinions. And the Board of Selectmen then is the one that ultimately would take action based on those opinions. I'm not sure what the one that was passed, Al, a while ago, I'm not sure exactly what it said. So, it was just going to be an effort, and I would share, if we could work on that together too. I mean, if we want to have like maybe the 2 of us, and I can send you all the information too, and we can come up with some sort of recommendation to the board, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that.
Yeah, and the good thing is this is very common in Connecticut, so it's not unusual that we would be doing this. It's considered best practice, and the state advises it as well. So there's there's templates, so I think we just have to kind of think through what direction we want to take it in.
I think intuitively it makes a lot of sense. I think the devil is in the details in this type of commission. And I would kind of editorialize that so long as we don't follow the state ethics setup, their ethics review process, I don't think is very robust, but there has to be a path to a good working commission. And I would also like to throw out there that I don't think this is an endemic problem in the town of Madison. I don't think that we are a town that has any meaningful amount of conflict, if any, on the ethics front. So to a certain degree, it's good that we're having this conversation because we're not in crisis.
I couldn't agree with you more, Bruce. I 1000% agree. I think, to me, this is an opportunity for us to be proactive and to set a tone of what we believe is the right culture in Madison. So I think it's an opportunity for us to sort of lay the groundwork and the foundation for proper behavior, but also an outlet for the public as well to be able to come to an unbiased board and raise a concern without fear. So I think again, I think we've got opportunities to leverage, a lot of great things happening across the state, whether it's the state one or not. I don't know the answer to that, but I think, if there are some best practices out there, let's go look at them.
And I think that's probably the way to get started, is to go to the municipal organizations that we already belong to and see what they've got in their libraries for guidance, and then to start benchmarking around the state, different towns that have a similar governmental setup, right? So towns with boards of selectmen, boards of finance, and see what they've got and what's working, and start there. And I think that's
time is also. I think the time is also right now. 15 years ago, we were perhaps a bit ahead of the curve on this, and it was somewhat controversial. I believe now this is much more mainstream, and there are lots of templates and examples for us to learn from the experience of others. So I think it's a great time to dive back into it.
I have a broader question, and I don't know if it can be answered, but do we ever undergo some kind of review of our committees and commissions and kind of say, because we have a lot and we often form more. I mean, do we kind of look and say, these are the types of issues that we feel like committees really can help with. These are the types of things that may, just because it is a lot and it can be very valuable, but it can also be arguably inefficient if it's not effective. So I don't even know if that's possible, but I just wonder if we can somehow or should somehow look at that.
No, I would echo that. And that's what I was hesitant to even talk about more committees too, because I feel like we're doing a lot of that. And I think that part of the charter review is to go through and I think, I haven't met with them yet, but my feedback is going to be looking at that. Like, because our charter currently has certain commissions, I guess, detailed in the charter. And then there are other ones that the Board of Selectmen has engaged. And so kind of figuring out what are the must do, and maybe some of them are required by the state. I don't know.
Right.
And then looking at the ones we have, like one of the concepts that we've been talking about is consolidating a couple. Like we're struggling with sustainability right now. We really need a sustainability committee, but does this overlap with like energy and conservation? And so I know Dave Anderson had some ideas about merging some committees too. And so trying to just, consolidate and leverage, resources more effectively that way. And I mean, the good thing is we've been able to get people to step up and serve on a lot of things, which is incredible. But I think it's probably, something that, is best to discuss with the charter initially to find out is it part of the charter? What do we have to have? And then as a Board of Selectmen policy, maybe, I don't know, maybe we do have a review of, every couple of years where we just go through and see, what's dormant, are we able to get people to do this? Are they effective? Are they accomplishing anything?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because one of the people who interviewed for the Affordable Housing Committee asked in the interview, why is this a committee? And wasn't challenging it, but said to us, why is this a committee and not something that the Board of Selectmen is just going to do? And it kind of made me stop and think. I mean, I can certainly articulate the value of having a committee for affordable housing, but it was an interesting question because I don't know. I don't know what, why we would do a committee versus not do a committee. And but I certainly think we have a history of using committees and for different issues and hopefully being able to draw some conclusions. So
I think you raise an interesting point too, Erin, in the sense of just sunsetting committees too, that, is there maybe there was a time and a place for a particular committee 10, 15 years ago that may not have the same time and place now. And so I think, reevaluating, the useful life and the purpose of all of our committees is super important. There may be opportunities to consolidate committees or look at membership of committees. I know that, the consistency across some of these committees from a membership standpoint is also not consistent. So I think that's another thing we can look at.
I think, but to Peggy's point, I think that this is a discussion with the Charter Review Group. And I think probably what we're kind of talking around is modifying the charter to give us a little bit more discretion, either as a Board of Selectmen or via town meeting, to toggle on and off groups, commissions, to create something more than an ad hoc group, either as a Board of Selectmen or through a town meeting, and not have to go through the gate of a charter review. So Peggy, if I'm paraphrasing you wrong, I apologize, but that's certainly the way I think about it.
Yeah, no, I think we can start at that level and then figure out, how we kind of make more of a framework. And I think right now it's just kind of like, okay, let's do a committee for that. Or, kind of, we have a problem, let's go put a committee and maybe try to have some more guardrails around that.
Right. And probably what we should do is when we take on a project as a board, we should ask the first question, is this a project that we can do ourselves or do we need to delegate this work? Because that's what committees and commissions are, right? They're delegations of Board of Selectmen work substantially. Where it's an acknowledgement that we can't do it all and we would be crazy to try. So let's get other people and other minds involved. And that should be the first question we ask. If we can do it ourselves, we should do it ourselves.
I'd like to add an additional idea, and that is, as we look at these committees, I think we need to ask ourselves, how are these committees supposed to relate to each other? We tend to set up the silos. We haven't been very good at developing, coordinating, or integrating mechanisms. And so as we look at all of our committees, I think we honestly need to ask ourselves, shouldn't there be more cross connects between some of these?
Yeah,
No,
like the CIP as an example, which is to me a great example of a cross-board integrated body. We did that tri-board a couple of years ago, which was sort of used for the same purpose relative to facilities. I think those examples where we collaborate more intentionally is super powerful.
Well, and one of the things I'm learning is more about how some of these committees interact with operations. And we had a meeting early this week to talk about the crosswalks. And, that involves the police commission, the bicycle and pedestrian committee, and then it involves public works and town planning and my office. So it is interesting how these all, and part of it is making sure everybody, the right hand is talking to the left hand. So that's part of what we're trying to kind of put together better so that there's more of a holistic approach to these things versus we don't find out that one committee is doing one thing. Not that anyone was doing anything wrong here, but I'm just saying it was kind of interesting to think about all these things interfacing and then saying, okay, let's have a combined strategy. So we're more effective at dealing with some of this. So,
well, and I also think that eliminates the feeling that departments are being questioned or criticized or critiqued if there's more of a collaborative approach, than setting things up in silos.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like then,
maybe more of a sounding board too. I think, it's not just the silos, but it's also an opportunity, I think, to have the departments maybe have more of a sounding board to throw ideas and bounce ideas with, to maybe extend their vision of what they want to go do.
Okay, so it sounds like then we'll Aaron and I will work on the ethics commission. We'll kind of table these other ones, and then we'll talk a little bit more with the charter review about how we tackle this board and commission question that's come up. Okay. So we will move on to item number 10, discuss and take action to approve a recommendation from the Beach and Recreation Commission to increase boat rack fees effective July 1st, 2022. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, great. Scott, can you walk through this?
Can we back up the train a little bit? In the budget or the meeting packet, you have my memo regarding the boat fees, and so somehow it didn't get caught. The second to last sentence says, with the approval of the board, we would institute the fees increase this coming season, which begins in the month of March for all renewals. It's not July of 2022. We wanted to institute the boat rack increases this year.
So we can amend that motion. Why don't we just amend it?
Yeah. It's funny, I don't have the paper in front of me. So I'm like trying to remember. So this would be effective July. Yeah, oh, right. Yeah, effective July or effective March.
This says 2022.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be 2021.
So March 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll amend the motion if somebody wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, great.
A whole host of seconds.
So I'll let you, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about fees, the Beach and Rec Commission. We have Rob Card here. So Rob, if you want to just kind of highlight why your commission is recommending this.
On the boat fees or specifically?
The boat fees, that's what we're voting on today.
Yeah, so Scott and his staff are building 90 additional boat racks. We have been able to meet the town's overall needs with overall boat storage. However, there is and maintains a waiting list at East and West Wharf. There's just limited space there. So that means that although we can meet the needs, they have to go to the surf club. We're actually building additional boat racks. There seems to be an increased need with more people home through the pandemic and just general outdoor enjoyment. So the fees have not been raised, I believe, Scott, since 2007. I know that's when some of the other passes were not or last updated. And so that was the rationale behind getting those up and operating this winter and taking the price increase to meet that cost and associated expenses. Scott, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I mean, I think I explained it in the memo that, you know, we undertook a study of all different towns. Linda did that work, and we found we were doing a lot of the same things as other communities, but we had many different price points. So that's why we're trying to consolidate down. A land space is a land space, and a rack is a rack. So, and each of the racks will be able to hold 2 boats. They're not going to be single racks.
And this is just at the surf club, right?
We're increasing another layer, another row at West Wharf to increase from 16 to 24 boats there. And then the other racks are all at the surf club. There's no room at East Wharf to.
I was going to say, because that's the one that has the longest wait list. I think
yes,
we've on it probably for 5 years, but like so.
And I think what we're seeing is a lot of people are, and where the frustration is, a lot of the racks remain empty, even though they're renewed. So we're thinking that with the price increase, people are going to want to use the rack or they're going to give it up, which may free up some on the wait list.
Well, and I'm just wondering if there's a way to audit that, you know, if somebody ends up not using it at all for the, you know, you give them a refund, but let somebody else take the spot.
We did try that a few years ago, and it's difficult. You don't know when do you check them?
Right.
Do you check them first thing in the morning, or they may be out? Because a lot of times in the morning, it's very calm and people go out for a spin, and then you miss them. Okay, well that rack is open, and then they come back. Yeah. How many times a day do you check them?
Well, no, I'm just looking at the. Well, go ahead. I won't get into the details.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the beach and rec struggle with this conversation, and it is a source of frustration. And I think it really flies in the face of the service that we're trying to provide, the facility that we're trying to provide. That the racks would be tied up and left empty substantially for the most of the season. And Peggy, I agree with you that I have to believe there's a way to audit the racks to determine that somebody is just hanging on to it because someday they may want to put a boat there. And I appreciate that Beach and Rec really, you know, they didn't feel appropriate to take a heavy-handed position on this. But I do think it's something maybe that we want to ask them to relook at. You know, we could do an evening over a period of 4 weeks. And if there isn't a boat in the space, I think, you know, something like refunding the money and then opening that space up to somebody with a boat. Because it doesn't make sense when these things are in such high demand that we would allow them to be bought and kept empty. That, you know, we're not a commercial marina in that sense. Now, maybe the increase in racks is going to take this problem away. And maybe the right thing to do is just to give it a little time and see how that works out. I don't know, but.
Well, I think the increase in price, to Scott's point, might deter people from not from not leaving it empty. I think from an implementation standpoint, Bruce, I think that's going to be a nightmare. You're going to tell people you didn't use it and they're going to say, well, yes, I did. And then what you're going to like show them pictures. I mean, that's just going to get, I don't know, that sounds really difficult to implement, but.
Well, it certainly has the opportunity to be contentious. And I think that's why the Beach and Rec rightly kind of backed a little bit away from it, because that's not their role. Their role is not to create tension in the community.
Right.
So, but I would
Right, they're
argue
providing
that the increase is not going to dissuade somebody who is deliberately spending money just on the off chance that they may have a boat in the future. Going to $150, I don't think. I mean, it isn't in the bigger scheme of things that much money. I think if you did a sensitivity analysis, you would find that we haven't reached it.
So, I mean, I think that it sounds like we're all, there's kind of a, regulatory discussion here, but really it's, we're voting on the fee schedule. So are we good? Is everybody, can I just, all in favor of approving the increase in boat raft fees effective March 1st, 2021, say aye.
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 Okay, great. All right. So the fees are increased, and then obviously keep it on your radar that we should figure out how to try to audit this in some way. Just, it's going to be an ongoing discussion.
And I'd like to, I'm going to try. I don't usually do this. The commission has worked on a document, and that's why I asked Rob to be here. He developed it, and I'm going to try to share it, and hopefully it works. Okay, it won't take too long.
There's a button that says share.
Here we go. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so just real quickly, I'll take about 3 minutes here. So one of our objectives is to increase communication and trying to time that and put that together for the community and for the Board of Selectmen. So we'll share this with you. You'll have a copy of it. If you have feedback, please let us know. But the ultimate goal is to put this up on the website. And
nothing's sharing way.
Yeah, I don't see
Nothing.
that.
Nothing's out right now.
What?
Let me see. I'm going to see.
It's up on my screen.
Did you hit share?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you got to click on what you want. There we go.
There it goes. Something sharing.
That might be me, Scott. I tried. I wasn't able to do it, but maybe we've been able to figure it out. So what you're looking at here is just a document that is a summary of what went over this past year. And think of it from an informative point of view. I'm going to hit some highlights and then answer any questions you may have. So the first thing that we're taking a look at up top is just a real summary to let people know the big facts. 30,000 individual people attended, 5,700 stickers sold, 180 non-resident day passes were sold. That would mean it's Monday through Thursday, not weekends. And then 24 documented incidents. We want to keep this positive, but we want to make sure people understand that there are incidents and that we do document them. And then we did launch the new online pass system. We brought back lifeguards based on listening to the community, and we increased boat storage as we just discussed. We also highlight expenses and revenue. We are not here to charge a fee that covers our expenses. That might be hard for some people to understand. I know this group understands that we operate from the general fund. And what we did want to call out was some of the actual fees and the costs of staffing, the actual material passes we purchased. And I think trash removal was something that I wanted to make sure that, Scott shared that with us. I mean, this is trash removal for Beach and Rec throughout the year, but the vast majority of those expenses and the demand increases through the summer months. And that includes downtown on the sidewalks. I mean, we have, summer traffic isn't just beach and parks and fields. It's also everyone that comes to town. Page 2 is just to talk about, we had a review meeting. We hit on a couple key points around lifeguards, seasonal staffing, the beach pass system, as well as boat storage, where we call out that we're adding that. We also discuss on the right-hand side of the page on page 2 will be opportunities really around increased communication. One of the key feedback points was, how do we get a standard operating procedure or one source of truth? So when we had to make changes last year, how do we get that out to the community? To that end, we will plan to operate this summer as we did last summer. Obviously, we heard at the outset of this meeting, if restrictions are eased and we can do that, we will. But we are planning to go into the season with managing attendance in the lots, but and on the beach. But again, this remains a fluid situation. We do make note at the bottom of the second page that fees have not increased since 2007. We acknowledge that we've hired more gate guards, lifeguards, as well as we do pay an hourly rate that's increased versus in the past. So we want to make sure people understand that's what we'll be anticipating for future state. So with that said, the Beach and Rec Commission, Bruce, if you were on the call, a lot of discussion on the sensitivity, the timing, the pandemic, wanting to make sure that if we could absorb the cost, we would. At this point, it's the feeling of the Beach and Rec Commission not to raise beach fees for this year. And we wanted to get that in front of you so you could see what last season looked like, what we're planning for this season. We're in the process of an extensive study that should be done within 90 days. Linda's collected all the different pass fees for shoreline towns, although some will be taking price increases, so we will need to see what they're doing. But we don't feel prepared to make a recommendation today to take a price increase. As a matter of fact, the commission felt that if we could wait, we would. And so those are my comments, and Scott and I will take any questions you may have.
First of all, Rob, thank you for that overview. And I know that the whole fee discussion has been a robust one at the at the Beach and Rec Commission, as well as our board has talked about it a lot. And so I think there'll be further conversations about that, with the idea being that we would be targeting not this summer, but the summer after, to start kind of aligning us with where we need to head to cover increased operating costs. I know we're on a little bit of a tight timetable, so I'm just wondering if we can move forward. I know some people, Scott, and I don't know about Aaron, but need to get off here soon. And so just real quick questions for Rob, and then maybe we can have you come back, Rob, as we get closer to the summer and really talk about a lot of these changes and more in depth, to really get an understanding of what the department, and as the merger happens, there's going to be a lot of things that you guys are going to be working on to improve service. So we could have you back maybe in April to really review a lot of that and some of the new thinking going on in the department. So any quick questions for Rob? No?
Is this something that Rob or Scott, you guys can send out to us just so we can digest it? It really, we couldn't see it on the screen at all. Sorry, it was like a little midget icon. So
yeah, Lauren, I gave a copy of it to Lauren yesterday.
Okay, perfect.
But I have it on my system, so I can definitely.
And it's got some good data too. So, and they've been really focused on trying to just, problem solve using real data to make decisions and kind of, address issues. Okay, so why don't we, and we have another thing here, which I think is a discussion, is number 11. So we approved 10 already, we voted, that's right. So we got the fee increases. Discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request in the amount of $20,000 to fund the increase in trash removal services for the downtown center. Can I get a motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay, just to summarize, this was the contract that came in over budget that we voted on. I think it was the end of June to approve. It was one bidder, and we kind of committed that we're going to have to find another solution for next year. But we really had no choice in this issue because the budget, Beach and Rec's budget had been submitted and, or finalized in March. And then we kind of had flagged this, and when we approved the contract for this year, that we were going to be $20,000 in the hole. So this is trying to just catch up with that expense. So is there,
what we approved was the 40 grand for 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And then, and then we had the summer of too much trash.
Yes, and I think that we have to, Scott's team is looking at a couple. First of all, we're going to be rebidding and making sure we get more than one bidder. And then second of all, we're actually looking at, do we do this in-house? And his guys had actually put some proposals together. We just haven't reviewed them yet. Like Guilford actually made an investment and they're doing all their town barrels now internally. Trash is going to be a bigger topic. I'm going to be bringing some other concepts to the board at one point because expenses have just keep going up. And the system is really, there's going to have to be some change ultimately in how we deal with waste removal. But so this is just trying to catch us up to a contract we already approved in terms of the budget. So any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And then Rob and Scott, we'll definitely have you back, I think, for a more lengthy discussion about just all the different, concepts and things and ways we can improve things in the department. So thank you.
Yep.
Number 12 is discuss next steps in process to determine the future use of Island Avenue School. And I think this was basically, we had in January, the committee had presented their preliminary recommendations about moving forward and launch. And, the recommendation was basically doing an RFP to look at 2 different uses of the property. And so now we just need to figure out how we as a board want to move this forward. And so Al had actually prepared kind of some thoughts about how we can do this. And so I'll turn it over to you real quickly, but you guys got a memo from him just kind of lining out a possible timeline, not a timeline, but what we can do. And then what we would need to do is update the timeline from Floyd about, what process we need to follow in terms of action items by the board.
There's 2 documents I would refer you to. They're in the package Lauren sent out yesterday, but the document is labeled next steps for Island Avenue. I put together this document based on the fact I had served as the liaison to both the Academy Committee and then the Island Avenue Study Group. And it occurs to me that we, the Board of Selectmen, need to agree on what this process will be to lead to the ultimate disposition, whether it's a lease or a sale of this property. So I tried to identify the steps I thought that we as a Board of Selectmen would have to take over the next number of months. And I'm not sure I captured them all. These are strictly my thoughts as to what we, the board, will need to do over time to eventually get this matter in front of the voters. So, Peggy, I'm not sure we have the time to really get into this today, but these are the steps I believe that we, the board, will have to take. And at some point, I would urge us to agree on this list or some modification of this list so that we all have a common understanding going forward.
And it really, just a quick summary would be, the board engaging a consultant to help us go through this process. And they would help us write the RFP and then engage the community once we get responses from that RFP, and to sort through and evaluate, which one we would want to, as a board, move forward with and ultimately take to the public for a vote. And so I think maybe today, since we are kind of running on time, if you have some high level, are you opposed to engaging a consultant? Are you opposed to running an RFP process? Just some high level thoughts would be helpful.
So so Al, thanks for doing this. This is great. I would suggest that, maybe, and I know we've got a lot of meetings coming up over the next couple of weeks, but maybe we schedule a 1 hour, like a real, just an hour special meeting for us to talk about this as a standalone topic. I think that we probably can get a lot done and really set a course on this. 1 hour.
I'm fine with it, but
Can you do a meeting in an hour, Bruce?
It's a weighty topic, Is everybody good with that? Do we just do that?
I agree. It's just it's too much to do right now. I think.
I know.
Realistically speaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's too important.
Yeah, I think as long as it's coordinated maybe with other meeting schedules would be helpful.
Yeah, okay, so we'll do that. And then maybe we can get a little bit more specificity on a few things in here too. I would recommend read what he did and send any questions or push, things that you want more information on prior to that, so you can have some time. I know you just got this yesterday, so, and maybe we'll try to schedule something like, end of next week. Actually, we have a Board of Selectmen workshop that we probably won't need, I think, in a week and a half. We'll see. So maybe we could slot it in there or something like that. So we'll figure it out. Okay, so we'll just do that. We'll plan a special meeting on this topic, and just please, maybe this week, think about what information you're going to need so we can kind of move forward quickly at that meeting.
Thank you for doing this, putting this together.
So number 13 is we decided to table, right, until our next meeting, because they're still interviewing members, possible committee members. We don't have to formally vote to table, do we? We just table it.
I just noted the minutes that it's tabled to the 22nd.
Okay, great. All right, number 14.
There are none?
Yep, there are none. Yep, nothing in there. Okay, number 15, citizens' comments.
There's no one with their hand raised.
Okay, I guess then the meeting is adjourned. We got it done by 10 o'clock.
I didn't think that was possible, that was going to happen. No way.
All right, guys.
Way to
Thank you.
land
And it
the
was a
plane,
long,
Peggy. Way to land the plane.
I just want to say it was a long, robust conversation, but I think we got everything resolved that we need to get resolved, and I appreciate you all working together on this. Okay, so we'll see you at the next one.
I just wanted to comment too that I really appreciated the discussion that we had as a board. I thought it was really, I know people are passionate about things, but I thought it was comprehensive, and I felt like we came to a solution that really met everyone's interests. So just wanted to thank everyone.
Yeah, I think that resonates, Aaron. I think, hearing each other's perspectives in this process and having a healthy discussion, debate, et cetera, is it's what this is all about. So it's okay, and it's expected.
Yeah.
Okay, great, guys. So we'll see you again. Lots to do. Bye-bye.